The first step in doing a timing belt replacement on a 3rd Gen 4Runner is to remove the radiator. I've already got this one removed with the coolant drained out. And you also have to remove the lines for the transmission cooler. A little trick I like to do, I keep around a set of old spark plugs and I use those in the end of the hoses to keep the fluid from leaking out. And then once the radiator is removed, the power steering belt needs to be removed, the alternator belt, and the air conditioning belt needs to be removed. The pulley bearing has been removed. Ready to take the front crankshaft bolt out and remove that pulley. Now if you are doing a timing belt on one of these 3.4 liter engines, I highly recommend getting one of these tools. This holds the harmonic balancer so that you can remove and retorque the main crank pulley. Without this, it's very challenging to remove them, and you can't get an accurate torque reading, especially if you have an automatic transmission. And the setup we've got going on here, got that crank pulley holding tool with a socket wrench, and then a jack handle holding it underneath the frame, and then a breaker bar on the main bolt so that I can really crank on that and get it removed. And once the main crank pulley bolt has been removed, you thread in a puller tool into the 2 holes on the front of the harmonic balancer and simply use this to pull it off. This is another tool that you will need if you're doing a timing belt job on one of these engines. Pulleys and belts off. To take the belt off, I usually just remove this top idler pulley. Doesn't matter on these if the cams move or spring because it's a non-interference engine, so you're not going to risk damaging anything. And now we're ready to replace the tensioner and the water pump and thermostat, and then we'll be putting the new belt back on. And on this one, it definitely looks like that front crank seal has been leaking. There's a bunch of caked oil on there. So I went ahead and fabricated this little tool. It's just a piece of angle iron with 2 holes. They're 1 3/4 apart. Using 2 10mm bolts, I am slowly walking that crank pulley off, just tightening them a little bit at a time, and I'll back them out and then add a nut or a spacer if necessary.